Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to continue the story of Kilbourne hole and talk about the near surface velocity structure using one type of seismic waves called Rayleigh waves. So this work is funded through NASA Survey GEOS project and is supported by our collaborators from UMD, ASU, NASA Goddard, and UTAP. I'd like to start off with a brief overview of the Kilbourne hole, which is a Maar crater. And its formation is associated with the explosive eruptions due to the interactions between the groundwater and the hot magma. And the crater sets a good example for explosive volcanic vents observed on the Moon and Mars. So it was used as a training site for crews from Apollo 12 to 17, and now it's used by a Rise 2 survey team as their primary site for field investigations. And GEOS was able to join the field expeditions to perform geophysical surveys. The deposits over the rim of the crater include ash deposits, base search bed, a thin layer of after basalt flow, and the underlying cambrites formation, mainly consisting of sand, silt, and clay. Within the crater interior, previous gravity and magnetic data have identified complex areas of slump and rotated blocks associated with crater collapse, and also like diatreme and in several intrusion dikes have also identified. They are covered by fluvial sediments near the surface. So the science question I've been trying to address are the delineating the internal structure of the crater and how they're related to its evolution. To answer those questions, we mainly rely on the interpreting seismic data. So far, GEOS has conducted active source seismic surveys on different geological units on the rim of the crater and inside the crater. They are shallow reflection and reflection seismic surveys along a geophone line using a sledgehammer as a source. The seismic data are collected with GPR, magnetic, and LiDAR. A seismic source, for example, the hammer shot, generates seismic waves that travel within the subsurface and along the surface. The Rayleigh wave is one of the principal surface waves. Rayleigh waves dominate shallow seismic wave fields, and they are super attractive for determining near-surface velocity structures because of their high signal-to-noise ratio on field recordings. An interesting feature of a surface wave is their dispersive behavior. In other words, the velocity of surface wave is dependent on the frequency of wave components, which is clearly shown on the dispersion curves on the top right figure. The first curve or the fundamental mode of dispersion curve is typically used for data inversion. Different frequencies of surface wave penetrate to different depths. For example, as the kernel on the bottom right figure shows, lower frequencies goes to deeper depths. So based on that information, we can invert for velocity structure as a function of depth. So here we develop a workflow to invert for the near surface structures, and the workflow consists of 4 steps. So first, based on the shot gather, we extract the dispersion curves and use as the average of over the line. And based on the average, we extract dispersion curves for each pair of seismic stations. And once we have all the interstation dispersion measurements, we generate the frequency-dependent velocity maps. So that's step 3. And then in the last step, the dispersion curve at each node of the map will be inverted for shear wave velocity as a function of that, because Rayleigh waves mainly sensitive to shear waves. So here I show several seismic lines from the surface wave tomography at the southeastern corner of the crater. The three lines are kind of co-located, follow the top-down strata, and the results capture the layered structure in the top ash sediments, and also high velocity, as the cold color shows here, the high velocity from the basalt. A prominent feature from the map is the low velocity zone from the line 3, which is due to the transition from basalt to the underlying cambrites formation. All the results, all the 2D results, also highlighted by our 1D average of velocity structure, compared to the P wave velocity from the first arrival refractions. Shear wave velocity from surface wave inversion reveals more details, in particular the low velocity structure, which is not resolved by the P wave refraction. Next, we apply our workflow to seismic lines across the rim where we have very strong topography. So here we have both a depressed and uplifted topography. The VS structure differs significantly from the VP structures, and so especially towards the end of the seismic profiles. So in that, so based on that, we suggest the surface wave topography, so surface topography or the local topography will strongly affect the surface wave propagation. It is hypothesis that the surface wave may be trapped, especially right now. In our case, it's the small hill with the uplifted topography. So in summary, we present a near surface imaging technique based on the energy of surface waves to image the near surface structures at lunar analog sites. And this technique can be readily applicable to other analog sites and even to future planetary exploration missions. And also this data also highlights the extent to which future crewed mission lunar data can be applied. But we have to use it with caution right now because of the when local topography is present. So for future work, one interesting point is the VP-VS ratio, because right now we have VP structure from the first arrivals and the VS structure from the surface wave inversion. And we can use the VP-VS ratio because it is sensitive to lithology and pore fluid. And also, a final step is the joint interpretation of the subsurface model based on the different geophysical data sets from, for example, like GPR or magnetic gravity, to find the best model that best represents the subsurface. And I would like to take any questions. Thank you.